Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a really special guest on today, Gemini. So hi Gemini, how are you?
Hi, AJ. How are you?
Good, so glad you could join us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I've been very excited to do this.
Yeah, and I know that just before we do start, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm currently on. I'm here in Baldwin Q on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I pay respect to their elders past and present, but also I'd like to extend that to the lands that you're currently on as well, Gemini. And I do also acknowledge you here today and any of the Aboriginal listeners that tune into our podcasts.
Yeah, thank you. It's my great pleasure to join you from Darug Country today. Darug land was actually where I was born. So very excited to be back here, actually.
Cool. Look, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So Gemini was really, I suppose, born out of trauma, I suppose, like most queens are. But essentially, like as a child, I was born, as I said, on Darug Country. We lived in Sydney, and when I was about 6 years old, we moved to we moved back to country, a bit closer to country, in a little town called Maryvale, which is in between Wellington and Dubbo. And I'd sort of gone from a very multicultural area surrounded by lots of kids in suburban Sydney to a rural community with a school with 30 kids. And I was like one of only two black kids, or certainly the only queer kid in the school. So I found out very early on that, I was going to be a target of bullying while I was there. And Gemini's world, as it really started as a world more than anything else, was a way for me to create space for myself to feel safe. And then later on in life, as I sort of struggled with my own mental health and on a bit of a journey, and I had an opportunity to be painted, I realized that there was something much deeper within me that I needed to express artistically. And not just artistically, but as a community and be part of an artistic community and a collaborative, creative community. And then that's really where Gemini was really born then. I decided then at that point that this was something that I did want to pursue. Yeah. So Gemini is a rapping queen. I don't really see myself as a traditional drag queen, I suppose. Gemini started as Nate's twin sister. I am a Gemini, born on the 23rd of May. And I realized that not really being an alter ego, Gemini wasn't really actually an alter ego, just another side of me. So she's a rapping queen. She's a YouTuber. She's a model. She's a pop star. It's the pop star that was always has existed within me that was too afraid to come out.
Is there anything that Gemini can't do?
Absolutely not. Like my twin brother Nate, I have what I call gay audacity, right? So, yeah, there is no such thing as no in my vocabulary or can't. If there's something to be done, I always sort of approach it in that respect. So I took to this kind of performance art very quickly, like I had most things, and found the energy. I think that's partly because of having ADHD can sometimes help with that hyper focus when you need to get things done, but it can also be a disadvantage as well. So, yeah.
So Gemini, I know you've recently moved to Sydney. Has that opened your scope to being you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being pushed out of your comfort zone is something that everybody should do once in a while to try and test themselves, particularly if you find that you're struggling in life. If you're not on your dreaming path, as I would say, the ancestors will always find a way to pull you back. It's about, that obligation to deeply connect and listen. And I knew I wasn't really happy in Melbourne. I'd spent a long time in Melbourne. I moved to Melbourne when I was 17, actually, in the late 90s. And I'd lived there for 17 years. So I'd lived in Melbourne longer than I'd lived anywhere else, including Dubbo, my country where I was from, and
Yeah.
Sydney, where I was born. But also the pattern for me was running away. So there was a negative pattern there that initially made me want to come to Sydney and made it attractive. What I found out though was it was an important part of my journey, understanding who I was, out, pushing myself outside of my comfort zones and boundaries. Sydney happened to be the place for me to do that. I guess I was too complacent in Melbourne. But it really pushed me. It pushed me to make friends and to be more social and struggle through my ADHD and sometimes my social anxiety as well. And that slowly built the bravery towards this.
I see the shoes behind you. You want to give us a look at some of those shoes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very lucky. Some people would say this is where all the magic happens. This is where everything happens for me. So this is my room. I'll give you a little bit of a scan. Look, I'm
Yeah.
very, very lucky. I moved in with my partner, Stevie, how long ago now? I think we must be on about 4 or 5 months. We were both nervous. I mean, we're a bit older and we're very fiercely independent, busy lifestyles, busy jobs. But it worked out really great for us, and more room for me was fantastic. My partner's been such a wonderful support to me in helping me grow and again, bravery. Every time I have doubt in my head, that doubt is out of my mind. Someone there believing in me as a bit of a champion. So, yeah, I was very lucky to have this very beautiful space. This is my little podcasting space that I'm going to use because I've got a couple of YouTube series coming out as well in the future. So my interior design skills from years ago can be used in this room. But definitely shoes. I love shoes. I love clothes. That's been fantastic. I come from a family of girls and we all love to shop. They're all very beautiful, and I would always enjoy going shopping with them, but could never engage really in it and wear their clothes. But now that's all changed, so I'm making up for lost time.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color, it changes. It's a really hard question for me. Pink is a staple, and purple at the moment as well. I'm really feeling purple. But Gemini's a girl that color blocks. She doesn't wear too many sequins. She wears a lot of metallics. She's not a traditional sort of queen. This is a beautiful Alex Perry dress that I happened to get off Marketplace, really inexpensively, actually. It's a bit cheeky. And this is what I kind of call a Sydney eastern suburbs girl princess dress, right? It's something like a girl would wear to a prom. Um, Gemini's whole kind of what Gemini tries to really push actually is traditional values and stereotypes around gender, beauty, sexuality, sensuality, which are often stereotyped in a really negative way towards mob. I've always felt very attractive. I'm very blessed in that respect. My ancestors are all very pretty as well. So I had the opportunity to do that with Gemini. And that's what I really hope to do in my shows as well. And that sort of comes from the work that I do around eliminating racism within systems, within health systems and social systems in my day job. So it's all kind of built up to this kind of story, really, around challenging some of those stereotypes.
So, Gemini, have you experienced racism or discrimination you're who you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been very challenging for me, particularly this year with the referendum. I'm a really staunch Black person. I was very lucky to spend a lot of time on my country. I've been attending land council meetings since I was a child, being actively involved in the community, but also being someone that's fair-skinned and kind of racially ambiguous, I suppose. And from that perspective, you kind of see a side of the world that some darker skin mob don't often appreciate, where it's that really sort of covert racism that exists within workplace and things that get dropped often around. What was really interesting though, the last couple of years, I've experienced more overt racism. And I'm talking about like people literally winding down windows and screaming out like you effing BC. Um, and that's something that's quite unusual, something that I'd never really experienced before. So I found that very interesting. And certainly around the referendum, I think I had about 7 experiences, public experiences around the referendum. One, in fact, I needed to actually contact the police when I was harassed in a store and threatened by a staff member in a store because Gemini's the kind of person that doesn't take people's attitude. I will call out racism. I'm always comfortable to stand up for myself and call out racism when I see it. But you do have to be prepared to sometimes accept the response that you get for doing that. So yeah, unfortunately, it's been very, very tough, not just for me, but a lot of my friends and community as well. Yeah.
We have had the referendum not that long ago, but I want to ask you personally, what does reconciliation mean to you, Gemini?
Reconciliation is a really interesting concept that I think is not really in tune with who I see myself as a First Nations person. Like if I was in a position to be asked from the inception of reconciliation, my question would have been, what are we reconciling? I I can see from the process of reconciliation. In fact, I mean, racism has actually increased. It started at around 8% when the process of reconciliation was incepted. Now it's actually at 20% in New South Wales. And you can check that. That's with the Commissioner for Human Rights. So also, since we've had reconciliation action plans in the workplace as well, and cultural awareness training and cultural sensitivity training. And this is an area that, I've worked in my life. In fact, I have an internationally award-winning cultural humility program, sensitivity program. But from the data and the impact, it hasn't worked. So for me, actually, the result of the referendum was a time for myself to reflect on the work that I was doing. And how I could approach that differently. Certainly with my own work as a consultant, I think for myself, my cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity program is going to be turned into a cultural leadership program.
Mm.
So I sort of and the work that I'm doing, which we'll share in a bit more detail later, is around creating the right ethical and moral environments, so First Nations mob can actually navigate the Western world as a negative influence. Like it's always a negative influence on our culture. It's never going to be a positive thing. So it's very hard to try and reconcile when you're in this position of being double-binded like that. That's how I feel. So yeah, I don't know if it's the optimistic answer that a lot of people want, but Gemini is not unapologetic. She's defiant to the system.
Yeah.
I mean, we often talk about resilience. We're very proud to be a really resilient mob, but it's actually not a benchmark. If you look up the definition of resilience, it actually means that you can with maintain and withhold a position against adversity. But one thing that's missing within a position of resilience is growth, right? So I think a lot of the conversations that we've had in Australia around, understanding cultural bias, cultural sensitivity towards cultural competency, towards cultural humility, towards reconciliation, all of these concepts, I think the conversations need to continue because I think in the parts of the world where these things was first articulated within Western science journals, the dialogue's actually moved on, the conversations moved on, but I think we are still stuck here, unfortunately, as First Nations mob. And I think the referendum was a perfect display of that. But I think it's also a very opportunistic time for us to consolidate on on our achievements and actually get back to some grassroots activism, because I think that's where the wins were. And I would hate to see the legacy of that work destroyed, because that's what I'm fearful of now.
Yeah. How bad do you think it could get before people actually start to acknowledge that this is an issue?
Yeah, look, I think how worse could it get? The World Health Organization back in, I think, 2008, don't quote me, determined that First Nations people in Australia suffered the worst social and health outcomes in the world. And I think, you know, like there's multiple human rights sanctions. I mean, like to still be in New South Wales, you know, to be so severely impacted by colonization, we have two land right regimes. There's something like 35,000 unprocessed land right claims within the New South Wales land right system. Tabaga Mob in Dubbo were, I think, the first in New South Wales to have native title. In fact, I was the chair of our native title organisation. And I just think often our opportunities are frustrated just by the colonial system. And I think it's really the time to just accept that it doesn't work for us. And we need to really explore mechanisms for improved outcomes and better self-determination.
Yeah.
Not happening.
Do you think, Gemini, that one of your profiles would be to increase awareness around queer mob?
Yeah, absolutely. The LGBTQI plus mob in Australia, Black mob, are the most vulnerable cohort in the world. And I've worked in the health and social sector, particularly in drug and alcohol space, mental health space now for a long time in my day jobs. And I know there's limited funding and resources that really goes into research to really understand what services and support that queer mob need. I think broadly, though, what we really need now is actually independent media. I think that's very important. I think we established fantastic Aboriginal community-controlled organisations. If you look at Sydney, you know, Gadigal Information Services and Corey Radio, we have all of these wonderful opportunities to have independent Aboriginal media in Australia. And that's an area that Gemini really wants to focus on. In fact, my dream is for an afternoon radio show. We're going to do Monday call in, drive home, Monday microaggressions. You know, what kind of racist bullshit have you copped in the office on a Monday? Like all of that kind of stuff. Gemini's world is about creating a platform for particularly Black queer people to show you this is who we are. We don't need to code. Constantly walking around having to make you feel good about yourself is exhausting, honey. So we're not going to do that, right? I carry my cultural safety with me everywhere I go. I don't need to ask for permission. So hopefully what I can do is show other queer Black mob that you can be brave, you can stand up. People are always going to try and knock you down or disagree with you. You know, like as a boy, you know, growing up in a small country town, I was always called a girl. How funny. So it's, you know, I realized, unfortunately, you know, but fortunately, at 39 years of age, that when I looked in the mirror and I was unhappy about all of those little things, that internal narrative wasn't actually how I felt about myself. It was all the things that people had communicated to me over the years. And that's what formed my kind of image of myself. Now you need to kind of look through that.
Mm.
And I think that's what Gemini encourages people to do, is live your authentic self. You know, I've over the last sort of year, it's been difficult on this journey of Gemini because it has fractured relationships with people.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's through jealousy, whether it's because people are proprietary, whether it's because people just like to be comfortable the way things are and they don't like change. But you have to be prepared to do that because as I see it, it's part of my dreaming. If I'm not honoring that, if I'm not deeply connecting and listening and staying on the path, then culturally I'm not doing the right thing. I feel very important that this is part of my cultural journey as well. There are many things over the years that have brought me to this point, actually.
So recently you just launched a video.
Yes.
Tell us about the video.
Oh, I
What
love
inspired it? What prompted it?
Yeah, look, fantastic artist, Miss Kanina. It's just a fantastic th song. I was looking for an anthem for Gemini. I was actually also trying to sort of work out how I wanted to pitch my performances, whether I wanted to get into more DJing, whether I wanted to sing live, I wanted to do lots of different things. I am producing a big show next year, which will have a few different components, but rapping certainly something I wanted to do. I'm like, I can do this. So let's throw some lip sync raps
Yeah.
out and get people thinking. And it's just a fantastic song. I love the artist. And the first person to like it was Miss Kanina, which I was so damn excited about. I like
Yeah.
honestly, it took my breath away. It's hard as a content creator. Yeah, like there you go. It's hard, it's scary. Look, I hope I'm producing good content. I feel like I'm getting better each time, more outside of my comfort zone. The fear's going away. And I'm just blown away by the support of people, particularly my close circle and my friends. There are a lot of creatives in my circle. There are a lot of people who produce shows and have been Bangara dancers and who are phenomenal established queens. So I'm just blown away by the support and attention that it's received. So yeah.
So how long did that take to shoot?
It actually took a full day. My partner Stevie helped me with that. We did 3 takes around the hot tub.
Yeah.
So 3 full songs at different levels of bubble and different levels of wetness. There's a lot of planning that goes into these things, which is really fun. When I first started painting my own face, it would take me about 2.5 hours. I can get it down to about an hour now. This was a little bit more complicated look. It took me 2 hours today.
You look fabulous.
A lot of work goes into it. A lot of work for a video that, only could go like a minute if you're lucky.
Um, Anything else coming out in the near
Yeah,
future?
yeah, for sure. So I'm actually planning on going to be filming a little bit of a series out the back. It's called I've forgotten the name of it now. The Lanai, a little bit of a Golden Girls reference.
Oh,
The backyard with the barbecue and the hot tub where I filmed the video for Black Britney. I just thought it would be a fantastic set for a little bit of a interview sort of show. So I have a very special guest that I'm very excited will be joining me. Who'll be sharing in their journey as a queen, catching up to see what they'll be doing. And then there'll be a little bit of a talent component as
oh.
well. So it's a little bit of fun. I'm hoping to release one of those a month. And the plan for that is to actually go out on location on a Friday night, on a Saturday night, to Oxford Street, to Newtown, film some of the girls' shows, interview them afterwards. It's a way to promote drag. There's lots of drag, there's lots of gender performance around Sydney. But again, there's not a lot of other content creators producing stuff about it. We could all make this a full-time job, but it's about getting the content out there and being crafty, and that's certainly something I'm good at doing. I've got a photo shoot with a few other girls that I'm working on with a couple of really fantastic photographers ready for Mardi Gras. I don't want to give too much of that away, but I'm really looking forward to that. And then my partner, Stephen Lindsay Ross, also has an exhibition each year at the start of Mardi Gras at the Bulmali Aboriginal Art Cooperative in Leichhardt. And that exhibition this year is my Black Sovereign Body. And Gemini will feature an artwork in that exhibition. So it is a new art form for me. I'm quite familiar with painting and kind of physical art forms. And this is going to be in a bit of a digital space. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be using social media. So I'm very excited. I need to pull that off now, and I need to find the money to pull that off now. So
Yeah.
the thing is, right, Gemini is currently taking donations because all of this stuff's really expensive. But definitely there will be some gigs coming up, and certainly it'll be ramping up before Mardi Gras. So yeah, stay on my page, follow me, to keep up to date with what we're doing.
So Gemini's got her own page on.
No. So the TikTok page is pretty much all Gemini's. I only really started that year. Social media has been a big sort of goal for me over this year. I've grown my audience from around, I think, about 1,500 to about 7,000 now. And I want to continue that and produce a lot more digital content. And like I said, radio podcasts coming in the future as well.
Cool. What's your plans for Christmas?
My plans for Christmas, my partner and I actually booked in, we live in Parramatta. We love it here by the river. We're both river people. He's Wamba Wamba. We've booked into a beautiful hotel and we've booked into a beautiful restaurant and we are having a very we are no children Christmas. That's planning to change. So this will be our last opportunity to do that. So yeah, we're really just not going to do the family thing this year. Like we're just going to be really selfish and just focus on ourselves. So really looking forward to that. It's been a very hectic year. And then of course that time of year is really busy for us. And then we go into gay Christmas, which is Mardi Gras. So yeah, our Christmases can sometimes be a little bit more chill.
You got a chimney in your place in Parramatta for Santa to come and visit?
No, unfortunately. And if a fat white man's going to be coming down my chimney, he better be watching out because I'd be smoking him out of that chimney. There'd be no way it would happening. I don't know if you've seen my dog on social media. She's like a huge 60-kilo American Staffy Bull Arab named Jeddah, who is such a bush dog. Typical red dust dog, red dust legs like mum. She will alert me and I will be smoking that white man out. We look, I know it's all fun, but yeah, we don't try and engage in a lot of that kind of stuff around this house, actually. We're very proud in our attempts to really decolonize our lives as much as possible. And like I said, mentioned before we started recording, things around calendars, keeping time schedules, all of those kind of things. Yeah, we try not to practice as ritualistically, I guess, because I have other things that have replaced those now in my life. My culture, my being a Tabaga Aboriginal man is my culture, and it is my spirituality in my life now. And I've never been happier. I practice the dairy every day. I focus on my obligations as an Aboriginal person, Tawaga, main Wiradjuri person on Darug land and Gadigal land, and what I need to kind of do to tread lightly on this place while I'm a visitor. That's what keeps me focused and keeps me on the right path, and I can sleep at night that way. And I certainly don't have people coming for me, that's for sure.
Do you think Gemini will ever go back to the primary school and high school that you went to as Gemini?
Oh, I would love that. If they would invite me to read a book, I'd be very happy to do that. I'd be very picky about what the book was.
Yeah.
It'd be very hard work. Yeah, I worked at a university for a while. I love education. Education's problematic. The type of education we have here, certainly, if you're not Anglo-Christian person. But I would definitely love to do that. I think it'd be full circle for me actually to do that. I'm looking forward to going back to Dubbo next time actually and checking out some of the clubs. Who knows? We might wear this dress, we might wear something new, and I'm sure I'll have lots of fun.
Has Dubbo seen,
as Doja Cat would say.
Has Dubbo seen Alex Perry in drag?
I don't know if Dubbo's seen an Alex Perry dress, and I'm sure if it had, it would be on my beautiful cousin Claudia, who used to work for Alex Perry. So Gemini loves designer label clothes. There's nothing better in my life. It's Christmas for me when I'm at an op shop and I find a designer label dress. That's Christmas for me.
Well, that was my next question, actually. Where does Gemini shop?
Yeah, Gemini shops all over the place. Wolf and Badger is fantastic. I like really unique things. I have particular designers that I follow. Amy Lynn, I absolutely love. Fred and Elsie, fantastic designers. I feel like Gemini has a very UK sensibility to being a fashionista. And it's quite intentional actually, because it's sort of is a response to the monarch, right? Like I can wear this beautiful princess dress as a Tabagame Wiradjuri woman. Like I could be in Buckingham Palace. I could be at one of those weddings right now. No one would even know, right?
The Black Britney video that you just did, how much editing did that involve?
Hours and hours and hours. So yeah, I think it took me, like I said, a full day to film and all over editing 3 days actually. And that's in between a full-time job and everything else. I mean, everybody jumps on their phone on their lunch break, right? It can take a lot of time, especially matching up some of those the lip syncing to the music as well and making sure it's right can take some time. And face tuning and and everything else.
So what's the big difference between, like you talk about your twin brother Nate and yourself? What is the difference between you two?
Yeah, I think the main difference is Gemini is just a pop star and a badass and the exaggerated version of me. But they would be pretty much like if they could be identical twins as a boy and a girl, they would be. Their values are the same. There's so much alignment in a lot of different things, very similar in a lot of in a lot of ways. Gemini certainly has more balls.
Yeah, you're actually hiding them well at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, they hurt.
So on one of your social media accounts, you've actually got Wiradjuri Gemini's queer pan SexWitch vibes.
Yeah.
Expand upon that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question actually, and it's probably going to come from somewhere that you probably wouldn't have thought. Um, so my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, was Tracker Riley. And Tracker Riley is a very famous tracker who solved a lot of really quite high-profile cases in Australia
Yeah.
when he was alive, and he received the King's Medal. And something that like his story was always told through the police perspective, right? But recently, one of my relatives produced a play called Tracker, which was part of the Sydney Festival, which focused on him a little bit more as a man.
Yeah.
And that sort of really is where that kind of started to come from. I realized my whole entire life there was something different about me. Um, I can't walk into a room without the whole room looking at me. Um, and I realized that I had an ability to kind of affect people, but then also like quite a rich empathetic ability as well. So my great grandfather, as they would describe it, they called it the quiet language, and it is a bloodline gift, like many things are in our culture. You know, you could be a tricky person, or you could be a law person, or you might have other sort of skills that carry along that sort of bloodline gift. And I think I realized certainly the last couple of years that I have that within me. And the way I realized that was through sex, actually, funnily enough. And the word sex, which it was not something that I came up with, it was actually something that people started calling me. So in some ways, I kind of like was a bit of a sex worker almost in a way, but it was people were actually finding me. Um, and they were finding me for a reason in the same way they would find my grandfather, or he would always just stumble upon these mysteries and things that needed to be solved. And certainly that very much is around energy and an empathetic ability and just knowing things. I often can just walk into a space, meet somebody for the first time. I know exactly how they feel. Like I know like exactly how they feel without knowing them, anything about them, I just know. I've learned to trust that over the years. When I didn't trust my instinct, that's when I got into trouble. So learning Dadiri and really learning about my culture more and practicing my culture as a spirituality, as ritual. I mean, I smoke my house. We smoke our house all the time. We smoked our house the other day. You know, we look out for signs. We look out for messages of ancestors. So I wear that word, witch, with a great sense of pride. Again, it's also showing my defiance to belief systems that were forced upon a lot of us. Um, and I think particularly Wicca, I think, you know, is an earth-based religion that really is very similar in a lot of ways in terms of its respect for earth and Mother Nature and country. You know, modernity is not a concept exclusive to white people. So
Mm.
culture always evolves. So whatever works for you, girl, use it. I say that all the time to young people. I have a term I use, I call cultural terrorists. People in our community that um, try and use fear as a tactic to stop other people engaging in culture, right? And the reason they do that is for their own means, right? It's to gatekeep the welcome to countries. It's to gatekeep their IP around what programs they're delivering or whatever else, right? And I hear people say things. I hear elders say things. Oh, you can't have those kids go and doing that smoking. They don't know their song lines and which leaves to pick up what time of the year according to what. You know what? The best leaves to pick on the day you do your smoking are the ones that talk to you that day,
Yeah.
and you will smell them. And that's when the oils are at their best. Like, and that again, like for me, our obligation as Aboriginal mob, our only obligation is to stay deeply connected and listen.
Yeah.
And we don't perform magic, it's not magic, right? It's honoring our ancestors, respecting our culture, and showing them they perform the magic for us. Yeah. So
That's
manifestation, affirmation, all of those things I believe in, and I practice them every day. When I was 135 kilos, heavily medicated, very unwell from chronic illnesses, very unhappy mentally. I was, you know, in a terrible position. That is what saved me. That is what, you know, I would look in the mirror every day and I'd tell myself, you're a sexy, beautiful person. The ancestors have blessed you every day until I believed it,
mm.
you know, and it's for me, a big part of that was actually, you know, people say, take the time, make the time for you. Don't think about it so literally. That is not what they mean. It's actually about keeping the promises that you want to make to yourself. We should all expect more for ourselves, right? Whether that's to grow as a person, to learn more, to achieve better results at work, to further develop our and strengthen our relationships, you know, in positive ways. You can't just sit in life, and think I've done enough. I don't need to do anymore. I don't need to work on anything. I will always be that person.
Yeah. What else does Gemini need to work on?
Gemini at the moment just needs to work on in believing in herself, like competing with myself. It's very easy as a newbie to social media to start comparing yourself to what other people are doing. You know, other people that are getting more likes and other like, you know, trying to replicate their content. I mean, you know, yes, there's a bit of a strategy in that with trends, but you have to be true and authentic to yourself. And I'm still on that path. Um, Also like learning to also step back into a space of inexperience. Because you know, I've at a point in my career where, you know, I'm in the senior leadership team. I facilitate conferences. I've done all sorts of like, MC'd at big events and conferences and things like that. So I was very comfortable going into this that I know how to work a room, I know how to like entertain people, I know how to do all of that kind of stuff. But you do have to, yeah, you do have to have some humility and self-reflective practice. And I'm learning to do that as an artist. I didn't have the opportunity to do that when I was younger. I left school and went into to study fine art. I was too scared, really, to even get to that point, to be critical about my work enough to focus on what was the next step. Um, yeah.
What's the next step?
The next step. So for Gemini, I want to be on the I want to be on First Nations fashion runway. I mean, look at me. I'm in a size small to medium girls. I'm a 6 foot guy. I mean, that's crazy. He's 40 years old, mind you. That's crazy. Put me on a runway, someone, please. Make a beautiful dress for me. I also want to I also want to perform at a lot of different events. So I really love dance music. I really love techno music, Studio 54 sort of vibes. So hopefully you'll see me around at a lot of those. But definitely modeling. I want to be on a film clip with Miss Kanina. If you watch this, if she is your cousin out there, if you're like related to her, if you already like my stuff, hit me up, please. I want to collaborate with you. I want to collaborate with Barker. That is the sort of stuff I want to do. I don't really want to focus so much on doing the shows down in Oxford Street. They're fantastic and definitely need to do those. But Gemini is certainly more of a model. She's certainly more like a video clip girl. And I also actually want to do my own makeup collab as well, as radio and stuff like that. Ultimate plan is I want to be on TV. I want to be hosting the Logies. I want to be at those big ritzy events, doing that kind of media work. We need more visibility as queer Black people. Like we are tokenistically pulled out at Mardi Gras every year or at Midsummer, but where are we being engaged throughout the year? And
Hey,
how are we being engaged? Is it at the bridesmaids party? Is it the hens night? Or is it something that has more substance? I think as First Nations queens particularly, we have so much to offer in terms of like our cultural stories and our journeys and our dreamings as queer Black people. So much to share. Mm.
hey, Gemini, do you have any role models yourself?
Oh, so many. Look, the women in my family, definitely. The first, my nan who I adored. She was an incredible woman. My nan moved to England in 1946, after she married my pop, who was an Englishman. He was from Manchester, and my mum was born, and they moved over to England. And I think for my nan, as a Black woman who was born on a mission in Dubbo to live in Manchester in 1946. So she just had this incredible sort of story. She nearly died on the journey over there, became very, very ill. It was an Italian prisoner of war ship. And these Italian women couldn't speak a word of English. My nan obviously couldn't speak a word of Italian. All those women knew was he was another woman who was nursing a baby who needed help. And those women saved my nan on that journey. And just so many other stories. The women in my family are incredible. I think in terms of other icons, definitely there are so many staunch women in our community. But also all of the 90s supermodels. That's very much where Gemini's look comes from. I was a kid of the 90s. So yeah, definitely kind of think that era as well.
Question. We know that Aboriginal issues and perspectives are being put into curriculum at school.
Hmm.
Do you think LGBTIQ perspectives could be put into curriculum as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we attempt to do that in Australia in very disjointed ways. And it's something we kind of politically dance around a little bit. Um, I spent some time a number of years ago actually trying to develop some programs for young people around at-risk type behavior. So whether that was, risky sexual behavior, whether that was, drinking at parties and those type of things. There's not a lot of evidence out there
Mm.
to kind of base a lot of these programs off. And I think that creates a lot of hesitancy for government to want to kind of fund those programs. And I think it's very true for the queer space as well. Like it's one thing to be an Aboriginal person. I think you live a political life, right? But to be a queer Aboriginal person is double political. I mean, I can like how many referendums and plebiscites do we have to have over part of my identity in my lifetime? So clearly there is a need for proper open dialogue. Again, I think the way we've gone about things, particularly through reconciliation and cultural sensitivity training, sometimes has created environments where we don't really like to talk about difference because we fear of being subjects to discrimination. But that's cultural blindness. And we should be comfortable talking about where we come from. When I deliver my training, the first thing we do is it's actually a joint acknowledgement of country. And I actually go around the room and I ask everybody to actually share their cultural background, if they've immigrated from here, but where they live, what country it's on, and what part of country heals you. Like, do you have a special place that you go with your family when you're celebrating, or do you go there when you feel really stressed and do some yoga? Like country nurtures all of us. We don't have a choice as Aboriginal people. Our old people would say, if something's here on the dreaming, it's part of the dreaming, whether we like it or not, right? So they are part of Aboriginal culture. That's the way I kind of see it. So actually, our obligation is to country, and country nurtures and protects and maintains everyone. That's that kind of reciprocal cycle that we all have.
So I've just watched the time and I'm just looking at one final question to ask you, and that is, what would you like people to walk away with from our conversation today?
If there's one thing that I want people to walk away with is the realization that this bitch is sickening and we are all crippled by fear in our lives. We all really are. If we really deeply want to be honest with ourselves, fear holds us back from happiness. One thing I learned about happiness is that it takes work to be happy. And there's this little thing in our body, and I learned this through my experience with ADHD, having a dopamine deficiency. If you're stressed, your body gets cortisol. Cortisol kills you. It
Yeah.
makes I work in health, I work in public health. A lot of my time is spent in preventative health. My kind of academic work centers around culture being an intervention, right? So for me, it's about daily doses of joy. Gemini is a representation of joy. It is me living my absolute best. I don't worry about making other people happy. Why should I worry about that? I didn't need that energy in my life. Surround yourself by love. People who feel good around you and people that you feel good around, they're the kind of people you need around you. If that's not happening, do not waste your time on it. Every bit of misery is another wrinkle and it's another bit of decay, but not on the superficial level. It's actually how we feel inside, our social and emotional well-being. And actually, that's what leads to chronic illness. We know in the community, the two biggest contributing factors towards a burden of disease is actually housing and it's actually income. Right. And the reason that is because you think about all the worries and all the negative energy being put in that terrible position, where there's never enough to go around. Well, most of us have come from those families, right? Filled with love, surrounded by a lot of pain, But that's why we know how to laugh and live hard. You know, you have to live hard. You know, you really do. I've lost so many relatives, so many loved ones, way too many funerals. Every time I'm on a dance floor, every time I'm out there getting likes, every time someone's loving my content, that's me living my absolute best life. So I just want people to do that. You will look fabulous. You will thank me for it later. Trust me.
Look, thanks, Gemini. And I've got a little sign for you here going, I love you.
Thank you,
Um,
Ellen.
so, hey guys, that's it. And I want to thank Gemini for joining us today. And I'll see you guys at the next podcast. Thanks, Gemini.
Bye.